We encourage you to hit the subscribe button right now so you can listen to more podcasts of Operation Truth. Ladies and gentlemen, we do want to hear from you, so we encourage you to email us directly at operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. I want you to know that your messages are likely to be heard, addressed, and listened to on air.
Operation Truth, the show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
This is Operation Truth. This is Lou Palumbo, and with me is Tom Fuentes, my co-host. Just to remind you, Tom's a former assistant director of the FBI. We recently had the pleasure of having one of his colleagues, Chris Schwecker, on our show, and we spoke about immigration. This is something that's very, I would say, in the forefront of Chris's concerns for our country, and Tom's and mine as well. We have flooded this country with well in excess of 10 million people. For people that are not paying attention to the northern border, Maine is having issues, Boston's having issues, and it's been reported for a while. At times they just walk across into this country or drive over the ice that's frozen into this country, into Michigan, etc. This is a serious, serious problem. It has put our national security at risk. You don't have to listen to me. Google Chris Wray and his remarks he made in a Senate hearing on C-SPAN that I watched, informing us that the southern border of the United States was a threat to our national security. And we can bump into this again, this conversation about China, because it's highly relevant. It's another threat. And that China, every 12 hours, we're opening up investigations as to their activities in this country. This is an issue that cannot go ignored. Irony applies here. We're watching numerous Democrat-run cities, the people that have this come on in attitude and policy, that are struggling and suffering as a result of it. It's New York, it's Chicago, it's Denver, it's cities in Maine, Boston. They've surrendered a rec center that was dedicated for use by our minority community there, that has been now given to migrants, illegal people in our country that have violated our border laws that we don't seem to be inclined to enforce. James Madison High School in Brooklyn. I've been born in Brooklyn. I know James Madison High School. An entire attendance of that school was told to go home and remotely learn, which we learned doesn't work for these children. They don't learn at home. If the parental structure isn't there, then these kids are not going to learn. They're going to flounder. We displaced them and put in illegal migrants. Now we're giving them in the city of New York credit cards to the tune of $53 million. When is your intelligence insulted enough that you can put down your political lens and look at things for what they are? The loudest voices in opposition to this border policy are Democrats. Miss Hobbs in Arizona. And by the way, the point that's most overrun happens to be the Yuma sector of Arizona. We've got them now running boats up on the beach in La Jolla. For those of you that don't know La Jolla, you missed something. This beautiful beachside community. I have to tell you, it's extremely affluent. They've got it on video. It's irrefutable. Came through on a camera, apparently. Running a boat up onto a beach, left the boat. Migrants jumped off, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 of them, and ran into the neighborhood. No one's going to pursue them. This is your country. If you're prepared to re-elect someone that has compromised the safety of your family, then I suggest you do that. If you find comfort, if you think that's the right course of action, I encourage you to love your children more than you love your politics. I encourage you to put down your political lens, let a little common sense, logic, and reason enter into your brain here. And I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to motivate you to think. I don't want you to just believe what I tell you, or what Tom believes, or anybody that comes on this show because you hear it from us. This isn't Fox, CNN, and MSNBC. We have no agenda. Oh, that's actually not true. We do have an agenda. It's what's best for this country, to be a voice to everyone. Our children, their future is in grave risk. I mentioned in the last podcast, Chris Schwecker, along with 9 other former executives of the FBI, wrote a letter to this president. This is shameful. I don't even know how to refer to this man. and I'm going to go off on him in a second about something unrelated to politics, telling him that the country is in the most grave state from a security standpoint that it's ever been in its history. And if you want to know something about the Bidens, don't talk to me about foreign policy, the energy sector, the economy, gas pricelines, the cost of living. Just take a good look at how they managed a little girl that this scumbag's son fathered and now denies this child. There is no greater sin than to fail your children. Your DNA, Mr. President, and your blood runs through her veins. And all of these immoral, to put it to you politely, Democrats or Republicans, I don't care who it is, that rubber stamp this should hang their head in shame. I could argue with you about policy. I could argue with you about the economy, the price of gasoline. We're talking about who you are as a human being. And you had to be coaxed, cajoled, and embarrassed by your own people and the media to finally acknowledge this little girl. I only have one question for you. What did she do to you? What did she do other than be a victim of that scumbag son of yours who fathered this child, who's wiggled and weaseled his way out of every obligation to take care of her, including denying her of her name? What the hell is wrong with you? I could listen to the banter about all the rest of this crap, defund the police and your borders. I got it. This is a whole different issue. This creates a framework of you that is just shameful. And people are still married to you. They think you're a good man. I think you're a scumbag. And not because of the gasoline prices. I witnessed what you did with this child. Shame on you. And anytime you want to talk to me about it, Slick, I'll give you my cell phone number. You can bring your Secret Service detail and they can sit and listen to me berate you. All of this other stuff is a discussion about policies. This is about a little girl and her life, guilty of being fathered by that scumbag son of yours. I don't know how many times to say this. This kid that you are prepared to defend and protect at the expense of the safety and the security of this nation. I'm going to ask Tom Fuentes to explain the relationship you and your son have with the Ukraine, Russia, and China. Tom, if you would.
Well, basically, Lou, Hunter Biden is the one that he's the bag man. The trips to China, the trips to Ukraine, the trips to Romania and other places was to get money to get sent by their authorities or businesses or government to the Biden crime family. Tens of millions of dollars. Peter Schweitzer has documented $31 million specifically from individuals affiliated with China's National Security Service that went to the Biden family. Then you have the Ukraine going back to putting Hunter Biden on their Burisma, which is the biggest energy company in the Ukraine, putting him on the board with no background, no anything, to make $85,000 a month as a member of the board. And then you have other money that has come from the Ukraine. The FBI had an informant in 2000, and this was brought up by Senator Grassley, that the informant basically says there are 17 phone calls between officials in the Ukraine to Joe Biden, to Hunter Biden, 3 phone calls to Joe Biden talking about sending the money, how they're going to send the money to the Biden family, the Biden crime family. And comments made by the informant were that the people sending the money were going to send it through the different LLCs that the Bidens control. And their comment was, it'll take them 10 years to figure out where that money came from and where it went. Well, it didn't quite take 10 years, it took a couple. And the House committee has basically now documented the millions of dollars that came in through that routing to the Bidens. And in the meantime, you've got members of the Democratic Party having seen the actual transactions, the documentation of this money being transferred, saying, oh, there's no evidence that Joe took any money, that Joe profited from that. The president didn't make any money from that. It's absurd. And it's stupid because it's illegal. If you take a bribe or a member of your family gets money, that's the same as if you took the bribe. So it's still illegal bribery. So you have all of this money that's gone into that crime family. And interesting, Joe Biden never had anything but a public service job in the Senate, vice president, now president. And yet he's got these multi-million-dollar mansions in Delaware, 3 of them now, one right on the oceanfront property. And where'd he get the money? Where'd that come from? Well, let's don't look at that. That's not right. So that's where the problem come in, is that we have probably one of the most corrupt administrations we've ever had in this country. You talk about other people that have taken bribes or senators. I'm from Illinois, and Governor Blagojevich got sentenced to 14 years, and he was going to take campaign contributions in exchange for selecting people to take Obama's unfinished seat in the U.S. Senate when he got elected president. So we're talking coffee money, 20,000, 50,000, the different bidding that went on with Blagojevich to take that money. And we're going to compare that to tens of millions, maybe upwards of $50 million taken by the Biden family, and everybody wants to ignore it. So that's where we're at now, is that we have such a corrupt presidency that it's affecting a lot of things, like our foreign policy with Ukraine. Basically, that's a massive corruption payback. Now, someday, our police academies and the FBI Academy, 10 or 20 years from now, when they're trying to teach new recruits what corruption looks like, they're going to put Biden's corruption case front and center on the blackboard or whatever to say, this is what it looks like. You take tens of millions of dollars and you pay them back any way they want it. And that's what we have right now. And that's why you still have, as long as Biden is president, he's still going to be asking for more money for the Ukraine.
Guys, I want to say something to you so we're clear. Our assessment of what transpires in this country has no political attachment. We would be saying the same thing if this was a Republican administration. If this was George W. Bush doing this, or Donald Trump. No, it happens to be Joe Biden. And this is the most dangerous time in the history of this country. And I think he should be concerned that 10 senior officials, men to the caliber of Tom, assistant directors, have written a letter regarding that. And it just goes ignored, as did the warning from Christopher Wray, which is echoed on a weekly basis. This is the most dangerous administration in the history of our country. And all you're worried about is your politics. Look, I got a message from Mr. Trump, by the way, so you know that we're really not picking sides here. Please close your mouth. Please go to finishing school. Please acquire some dignity. It isn't the fact that you did good things for this country. You insulted everybody on the planet, including the Pope. And I don't know what good comes out of that. And I have to be candid with you. I've been a contentious person a good part of my life. I know what it got me, even being right, telling the truth. I'll show you right there for all you guys that can see it. We don't like the truth in this country. Guys, this time you better embrace the truth or you won't have a country. Look, we didn't talk about this pro-choice issue and these knucklehead Republicans that seem to think they have the right to tell women what to do. Guys, the loudest voice in the room should be women. We should play, at best, a supporting role, unconditional. And then try to go to science and medicine, who, by the way, we've compromised their credibility, to get a straight answer as to when life begins, and then just have a conversation. This is so silly what we're living today. You know, at the end of the day, and I just want to remind you of all this, because I work in Washington, all these elected officials live in a bubble, a cocoon. Okay, they don't live like the average American. They're in complete detachment. Most times their kids go to private schools, or if they need security, it's afforded to them, depending on what's going on at any given time. Guys, you better get in the real world. We have 360 million plus people here who are sleeping at the wheel. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to tell you, wake the hell up. Put your political lens down. You know, let me bump back into this Hunter Biden bullshit for a second. It isn't even the taxes. Anybody can get in trouble with money today in this country. Look, I was a victim of a real estate fraud. It cost me $2.5 million in Charleston, South Carolina. I know all about problems with money. That's got nothing to do with it. It took me years to rebuild. This 4473, it's a federal firearms form. He lied on it. Period. It's a felony, carries a 10-year sentence. The weapon was found in a dumpster in proximity of a school, and there seems to be some trace of cocaine in the bag or whatever it was housed in. Guys, when is enough enough? Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Nadler, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Curry, Mrs. Clinton, Letitia James, Joy Reid. This is just absurd.
What, he gets a pass because he's your political party? You don't serve the American public. You serve your political party. And you're supposed to serve the American public. And you're supposed to figure out that when you're out of a difference of opinion with the opposing opinion, how you come to a compromise. That's your responsibility. You've all failed, by the way, both sides of the aisle. And anybody who would like to argue this with me, I dare you to grow the cojones and sit down with me and tell me what you think you're doing right. I'm not a complex man. I'll be candid with a lot of people smarter than I am. I'm astounded as to how smart Tom is, how much smarter he is than I am in many ways. I mean, we had different career paths. What he learned being a bureau agent is frightening. Chris Grecker as well. Steve Martinez, Rich Garcia. I mean, I know a lot of guys from the bureau. Ed Best, Ed Pisty. I worked with a lot of these guys in different capacities. I ran the security for the World Cup games, ladies and gentlemen. In 1994, Ed Pisty was a former SAC in LA. Ed Pisty was the SAC in New Orleans. Ed Best became my friend, was the SAC. And I learned a tremendous amount from these men. I was intending on going into the FBI. I won't tell you why it derailed. But I learned from Tom. I learned from these guys every time I brushed up against them. And I always remind people of something you should embrace. The people I love the most, the people smarter than I am, because that's how I continue to learn. You stop learning, you stop living. Put down your politics. Take a look at the direction your country's going. Stop listening to these day-to-day lies that are being told to you. I hate to say this, by Democrats. And I remind you all that my favorite president of all times was John F. Kennedy, who was a Democrat. And his brother, Robert Kennedy, whose life was shortened in 1968. These were true leaders. They had a voice to everyone, not this crap you're listening to today. They can't tell you the same story twice in this country. They lie to you about everything, including gun control. You ain't seeing any, ladies and gentlemen. As we're talking here today, people are buying guns in record numbers because the public is unsettled. They're distrustful. Oh, yeah, by the way, let's bump into that New York incident. You know what that's telling the American public? That if these mutts, these illegal immigrants in this country who broke the law to get here and then committed a felony assault on 2 police officers are brazen enough to take on guys carrying guns, what chance do you think you stand? I'm just curious. You know what the reaction is? They go out and get guns. 17 gun stores opened up in Nassau and Suffolk counties last year. These are 2 counties. Nassau is contiguous. Suffolk is contiguous to Nassau on the east. Pay attention. Stop lying to the public. We have more assault weapons than I have hair, and I got a lot of hair. When are we going to start telling you the truth? Simple question. When are you going to start telling the truth about the common denominator to your mass shootings, mental health? What happened to the big bipartisan legislation they told us about where, we were going to have enhanced background checks? Really? You think I fell off the back of an Apple truck? There's no enhanced anything. And you people, both sides of the aisle, haven't even started a conversation to address preventing mentally ill and emotionally disturbed people from acquiring these guns. You haven't even started. You're too damn lazy. I don't know why you'd want to be a congressman. It's more than a full-time job. They kind of float in and out of D.C. when it's convenient for them. I don't know where to go with these topics. This is absolutely madness what we're living here today. The worst part about this, fixable. We need a migration process in this country. We need to be able to vet people. We have people coming into this country that you are at risk of. We know nothing about them. Tom mentioned in the last podcast, he can speak about this again, 26 or 28,000 Chinese nationals crossed that border. I'm trying to determine what their intent is. Tom volunteered to you. They must have a good credit rating, otherwise, or a human credit score. They would have been able to get out of the goddamn country. When are you people in this country going to wake up? Don't just listen to this podcast. Speak to people to get them to listen to this. We want to inspire you to stop accepting the crap that's being dealt towards you. We can change this. I hope they don't push this country into an armed revolution again. People are getting fed up. They just don't know what to do. They feel hopeless and helpless, and they gravitate towards guns. You want to know why the founding fathers, wrote the Second Amendment? Pay attention to the Ukraine and Israel. Tyranny, foreign invaders. And I remind everyone, after 1776, the British made another run at us in 1812. This is why we embrace this tool. I don't like guns. I don't like any instrument that is designed to harm another human being. That's not my cloth. I do know the value of them. I am extensively knowledgeable and backgrounded. Guys, this is your country. Tom and I can talk to you. Tom can share the benefit of his wisdom, his career, 29 plus year career in the FBI. Most recent assignment, by the way, for Tom, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, he was in charge of all the offices and all the agents outside the border of this country. Can you imagine the scope of this undertaking? That's how smart Tom is, coupled with the fact he happens to be an historian. I don't mean to be his PR guy today. I'm going to send him a bill after today, by the way. You need to listen to us. We don't have a political agenda. We're worried about this country. We're worried about our young people. Tom, I want to bump into this conversation once again about, I don't know whether to take you to the Ukraine, which is just sucking us dry financially, as we're not taking care of our own people. In the last podcast, we spoke about this tunnels to towers with Frank Siller, where 95% of your money is sent and goes to the intended, that a private entity has to provide accommodations for our veterans who have lost their limbs, right? I've seen them with their faces burnt off and both arms missing. Camp for Heroes outside of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. If you like, I'll take anybody who'd like to go. You should see what I've seen. It makes you want to cry. Why is the government not doing this? Now we're busy pouring money into illegal people, right? $53 million worth of cards, credit cards in New York City, displacing children out of schools. When does it stop? And guys, look across your country. This problem Abbott has, he's made it your problem in all these cities that are sanctuary cities. Your two main destinations, New York and California. Seattle's getting banged, Denver's getting banged, Boston's getting banged, city up in Maine's getting banged, Chicago's getting its jock knocked off. Just look at the people they're interviewing. Money's earmarked to help our minority community, not going to them, going to illegal people, because the Democrats want to build a new voting base for you on the backs of the safety of this country. That's what's going on. And if these were Republicans doing it, I would tell you the same thing. I'm not thrilled with either one of these parties at this point. We've obviously outgrown a two-party system. We need term limits. You never hear this being spoken to. We never want to purify this system and reinstill the integrity, the honor, and the trustworthiness. We've destroyed every institution and its credibility in this country. Pick one. Science, medicine, education, the media, the government. Pick one for me. Matrimony's a joke. Let's stop lying to each other. 50% of them end up in the toilet. I don't know who in the wide world of sports gets married knowing you got a 50% chance of failure. When do they stop lying to you? Organized religion, I'm going to really offend all of you, is a farce. These are mechanisms that polarize us. And I went to 16 years of Catholic school. Catholicism has to get on the right page here. No abortion, no divorce, no gays. Give me a break, guys. Where are you living? Anyway, Tom, now that I've ranted again and you spank me occasionally, I want to go back and talk about this thing with the Ukraine, because the American public has to know where this money goes and that this seems to be never ending. So, Tom, I want to ask you, we're now negotiating with the safety of our country, and it's being held up because we have to agree to give $60 billion to the Ukraine. People need to be reminded where this money goes. Please remind them as to the level of corruption in the Ukraine. Please, Tom.
Well, the level of corruption, Ukraine was always known for years as the most corrupt country in Europe. Now, the difference is from then till now is that the corruption extends right to Joe Biden. He and his family have profited millions of dollars in corrupt money that came to them from the Ukraine or from, say, Burisma, the leading energy company in the Ukraine, or directly from government officials. And now what's going on is the payback. Anytime you have corruption 101, give the politician the money and then reap the rewards back that the corrupt politician will give you back, whether it's legislation or other favors, you'll get it back, so make sure you pay it. And in the case of Ukraine, they're getting it back. All of the contributions to run their government come from the United States. most of the weaponry, most of that. And we could say, well, some of it came from NATO. What came from NATO was weapons from the United States that went to NATO, and a good part of that then went to the Ukraine or directly to the Ukraine. And now you have Ukrainian military officials in the last couple of weeks saying, you know, a good part of the weaponry that we were supposed to get is now ending up in illegal weapons bazaars around the world. So our weaponry that was supposed to be ours, some of it's in Africa, some of it's in Mexico going to the cartels, some of it's being sold to other countries at the weapons bazaars that exist all over Eastern Europe. So that was weaponry that was supposed to come here. Now, for about a year and a half or more, when questioned about that, the Pentagon said, well, we don't have to inventory it. We don't have to account for it. That's no problem. We're sending it. We're sure it's going to the right place. No, it wasn't. And now supposedly the government's going to start trying to track the money or track the weapons or track this or track that. It's promises without any hope of being kept. And that's where the money has gone. But the origin of the desire to send that quantity of money to the Ukraine comes, I think, in my opinion, Joe Biden himself profiting from the Ukraine. He, Hunter, and now even his grandchildren getting money wired to them through the LLCs. His whole family has made money from it. And you hear the reports that that's why, you know, as sick as Joe appears, as weak, as fragile, as cognitively challenged, you hear reports from insiders in the White House saying, you know, it's his wife that's pushing him the most to stay in this because she loves being first lady, all the benefits that go with that, all the power that comes from that. So you have his whole family basically propping him up because they make money. Whether it's Hunter, whether it's Jill, whether it's his brother, James, whether it's anybody else in the Biden family, they don't want Joe to quit or drop out. As long as he stays in, he's a cash cow for the family. Just like Ukraine is a cash cow for the military-industrial complex. Everybody's making money about this, and the only people that are really suffering the most, American citizens. We're funding all of this. Or the Ukraine soldiers and Ukraine citizens that have died because we wouldn't let Ukraine, Zelensky himself, make a deal with Putin 2 or 3 years ago to prevent the war.
You know, Tom, I listened to everything you say. You know, it's factually based. Tragically, it's factually based. You know what really I come away with, though, is this lack of morality in our political leaders. You know, I remember when Richard Nixon got caught in Watergate, Republicans went to him and said, it's time to go, Richard. And he left. There's no morality in this Democrat Party. And by the way, just to shock all of you, I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 because I had a security detail on Megyn, a little short window of time. But I brushed up against Sarah Palin, who wasn't fit to be the vice president. That was enough for me to vote for Silver Tongue. Spoke about redefining America. You're living it. He spoke about this progressive movement. You're living it. Tlaib, Omar Cortez, Cori Bush, all these women that are hate-filled. Ladies, I hear you. Help me fix this problem. Curb your rhetoric. But this lack of morality in this country, that this Democrat Party rubber stamp whatever bullshit gets put forward by Joe Biden. I'm not anti-Joe Biden. I'm anti-lying. There's nothing worse than to be a liar. This guy gets on TV and stares you in the face like Gavin Newsom and lies to you and insults your intelligence. You know, there's a thirst for people that want to believe the people we elect. You know, we accuse Donald Trump of lying. I'm not arguing with you. They all goddamn lie. Just for the record. And poor George Santos, he got his timing wrong. You don't lie to get the job. You wait till you get the job, then you can lie your ass off. You got your timing backwards, George. That's the problem here, my boy. You know, this is just shameful. This is about our children. It's about the honor and the integrity of this country that we have sucked out of it. Both of these political entities. I'm suspect of both of them. I don't care about the Republicans. I don't care about the Democrats. I care about my children, the young people, and this country as a whole. And they don't. Don't be fooled, ladies and gentlemen. Just look at the way they navigate these issues and bait and hook you and drag you around by your nose, making you think changes are happening when they're not. All we've got is a lot of rhetoric being thrown around. And you know what? I keep forgetting the media. The biggest problem in the country, those who create your narrative and your optic, the lack of veracity, that they have the audacity to call themselves journalists. They're more like game show hosts. Listen, I'm not a fan of Sean Hannity, period. Guy makes $45 million to pit us against one another and to insult the president. Look, I don't mean to insult the president. It's not the exercise. I don't want to talk about him when he trips or he has verbal gaffes. Anybody with a brain in their head and an attachment to truth and the morality of him holding this office should know Father Time is working against him. It's working against all of us. The gaffes he makes are just unimaginable. This is shameful. I don't know what to say to you guys. It's your country. I want you to take it back through voting, not through violence. That's not the answer. These morons sitting in Washington, D.C., all of them don't understand. If they don't change the modus operandi, if they don't start to introduce civility and decency in these conversations and start to compromise and stop insulting one another. I listen to people every day do the exact same thing that they accuse Donald Trump of doing. They say insulting, degrading, and demeaning things. Your media. Look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I'd like to sit down with the president and help him navigate how to speak to people. You guys don't understand what you're dealing with here. That's part of the problem. This could potentially be a personality disorder that, by the way, Bill Clinton has. This is a man. Look, guys, I bumped up against Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not going to tell you too much, but we got to read on him. Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were pals. That's all I'm going to say to you. And I know Ghislaine Maxwell. If you met her before this whole thing went crazy, she was a lovely, charming, attractive, fun, kind person to hang out with. I didn't know what the hell she was doing here. OJ was my client. I didn't know. I mean, I knew he had problems with women. I didn't realize it was to this extent. There's all these dichotomies with these people. But let's just go back to the main topic. How about we find a moral compass in this country? Tom, I want to ask you, I want to say one thing, and then I want to ask you about China again, because this is a hot topic in the country. I don't think the public hears or really understands what's going on. But I watched The View, right? And I want to tell you guys something. You're going to think I'm nuts. I've gotten to meet Whoopi Goldberg a couple of times. I won't tell you how. It doesn't matter. I happen to like her. You know what I mean? We have established some form of a rapport. There's a certain charm she has. I do want to say this, and I don't mean to insult her, but she's gravely misguided on a lot of issues. Maybe because she has some political attachment, like they all do on that show, to everything they speak to. But they had a young man, Latino by background. I could hear the way he spoke, and he was incredibly articulate. And this girl Navarro, who used to be a Republican and now is a Democrat, now's on The View, is coming out going like, I just can't move past January 6th, 3 years ago. And this young man piped up and said, that's interesting. You have memory block when it comes to BLM's riots in 2020. You have a memory block when it comes to people storming the White House, damaging the gates, and the Secret Service evacuated the president to the bunker, or Wisconsin's Capitol being taken over in 2023. You'll have, in essence, he said it in a very nice way, a case of convenient amnesia. Guys, this is your country. All of you people that talk have a responsibility to be as truthful and as accurate as you can be. You are creating a framework of thinking for people in our country. Do you not understand your responsibility? Put down your political lens and start just telling the truth. Let it take you where it goes. I laugh at this thing with the Democrats. We have Tlaib, Omar, and Jayapal spewing anti-Semitism. You have anti-Semitism in our allegedly most prestigious universities in the country, maybe the world, MIT, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, U of Penn, right? How do the Democrats, right, have a support with the Jews? I don't get it. I got a load of friends of Jews. I ask them all the time. How do you support an entity that doesn't have the courage to remove Tlaib and Omar to start with? This is not who you can be as an elected official, that you spew this hate. You call for the destruction of our ally, the only Western presence in that region of the world. You hate this country. Stop lying. You say it. I listened to Omar talk about her love for Somalia. I have a good recommendation. Go back there. We plucked you out of there and gave you something better. And now you ridicule and slaughter this country verbally. Guys, I heard you. We made a ton of mistakes here. I got the memo. Slavery was a mistake. The way we managed our women for far too long, and even today, is a mistake. We need to change the way it's done. We need to protect our women more. What's the value in reliving history? Why don't we learn from the mistake and forge forward? Why are we not doing that? Tom, I want to get back into this with you about this thing with China, because I think this has got far more risk attached to it than the American public is having explained to them. Do you agree with what I just said?
No, absolutely. The problem is, the government of China, the Communist Party, CCP of China, enabled this whole group of 28,000 young men from China to come to the United States. They had to have given them permission to leave China, to get on trains or planes or however they got here and go to South America initially, meet in Colombia at a really nice hotel that they keep coming to, nice meals, all of that. They're well-dressed, have their designer bags, and then get on buses waiting for them, nice buses to bring them all the way to the United States. Then next thing you see the newsmen that have been tracking them, filming them, standing along the side of the road with green uniformed American authorities, Border Patrol and others, standing beside them as they wait to go through the line to declare that they're refugees. For whatever reason, how they're a refugee, they don't look oppressed, they don't look beat up by the Communist Party, any of the things that you would expect a refugee possibly to look at. But they come in, and then they're registered, then they're given a court date 6, 8, 10 years from now, which you could pretty much count they won't. And then they're admitted into the country, given the money, the credit cards, travel, whatever they need to go anywhere they want in the United States. Now, what is China doing enabling them to come here? Because China had to. They didn't sneak out. They didn't jump over a wall like they were at the Berlin Wall. They didn't tunnel out under the border into a neighboring country. They easily traveled from China to the United States, with China enabling it and allowing it, possibly paying for it. We don't know. Now that they're here en masse, now what? We don't know. We don't know for sure, but at some point, they're going to do something. They're not coming here to be good citizens. That we could pretty much assure ourselves of, because they wouldn't have been allowed to leave China if they were. Now you hear recommendations from Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois. Oh, we should let them join the military. That would solve our shortage of soldiers and seamen and Air Force recruits in our military services. We should let them in. And oh, by the way, that just happens to enable them an easier path to citizenship. Well, now what happens when 28,000 individuals get an accelerated path to be U.S. citizens? Then what? What good will come from that? Nothing. So that's the status that we're in. You have this group of people here, and we don't know how many others. This is only one group that was tracked. So it could be 100,000 Chinese. We don't know. What are they doing here? They're obviously here at the behest of the Chinese government, much like the U.S. did in the late 1950s with guys like Lee Harvey Oswald and several other Navy personnel, Marine Corps personnel, at an air base in Japan. And they were hired by the Naval Intelligence Service, basically, a subsidiary, basically, or a partner of the CIA, to encourage them to denounce their citizenship, turn in their passports, and tell the government, we're communists. We want to go to the Soviet Union because we're really communists, not loyal Americans. And then they go, and the KGB was waiting for them. The Soviet Union knew all about this program. When these people landed, they arranged for KGB female agents to hook up with them, possibly pretend like they're in love or start families. And that's how then, 2 years later, Oswald comes back with his notes taped to his chest, comes back to actually meet CIA in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, hands them their notes, how the trains work, how the phone system works, all of these things, which could not be electronically secretly transmitted at the time. And oh, by the way, he brings back Marina and they get married, and she's actually a KGB spy. And that was part of the Russian or Soviet program, was identify the Americans that are pretending that they want to defect and be communists and line up women for them so that when they come back, they bring these women back. Then the women get divorced and run around the US. KGB agents legally in our country to run around and spy for the KGB, spy for the Soviet Union. So this could be a parallel program to that on the part of China. Have all these guys come in, get admitted, get court dates 8 or 10 years from now, and then do all of the spying they need to do, loyal to the CCP of China.
You know, Tom, this whole conversation about this immigration process is disturbing, you know, and there's such a lack of morality attached to it. You don't even know where to start. We're not even talking about the illegality. I'd like to ask Sanders, Schumer, Schiff, Nadler, Blumenthal, Kerry, Warren, Mayorkas, Harris, and even our president. Who's supposed to benefit from this migration policy of 28,000 Chinese nationals coming in? Who benefits from that? Who benefited from the 10 million plus that came in? I can tell you, coming from New York, it isn't the city of New York. Their mayor is telling you this immigration issue is going to destroy the city of New York. The mayor is telling you that we are cutting police, fire, sanitation, education, 5% through attrition because of the migration problem. Go look at Denver Hospital. 22,000 cases of treating migrants. They're $135 million in the hole, Tom. They are going to go bankrupt. They said they can't provide service. This is unrealized revenue. It's Boston, it's Maine, it's Seattle, it's Austin, Texas. You know, when do these people grow a conscience? When does the American public, regardless of who you think you want to be affiliated with, go, this is out of control? Guys, at the rate you're going, you're not going to be safe, because I'm going to tell you a little secret. You can't employ illegal immigrants. It's against the law. They're trying to pass legislation to do so. Oh, yeah, that might take American jobs from Americans here. We need a migration process with an IQ attached to it that lends itself to a vetting process and some orderly form of entry. It's not
Lou,
that
we actually have that, Lou. We have an immigration process for people that come in legally, but not for these illegal migrants. That's the difference. I've been through that with my wife. The legal process is extensive, and it's multiple interviews, multiple polygraphs, DNA samples, physicals, other interviews, other record checks, you name it. It's a diligent process. Now, probably underfunded. There's maybe not enough people being allowed to come in legally to go through this couple-year process on your way to citizenship. These are people that are illegal. So you don't have any of this vetting. You don't have any of the processing. You don't have DNA samples taken. You don't have polygraphs. You don't have record checks from every country they ever lived in. You don't have any of the things that legal immigrants get on their way to getting a green card, on their way from the green card to actually becoming citizens. It's a very, very diligent process. It's well run. It's just there's not enough people going through that process to make it worthwhile. This is a whole set. This is not an immigration issue. This is illegal entry into the United States that doesn't qualify for getting into the system. You have millions of people in line to become U.S. citizens. And that's not this group that we're letting in and letting run wild.
Guys, let me just say something also to you. You know, the crime is skyrocketing in New York City, in which illegal immigrants are participating in. The city's not telling you. They're commingling it with all the rest of our own citizen-based criminal element. They don't want to tell you. Venezuela has pickpocket gangs that are, I would say, targeting Times Square, which was the impetus to the gang assault on two uniformed New York City police officers, one of whom was a lieutenant. You better pay attention here, folks. You've been sold a bill of goods. I don't want you to listen to me. Listen to Eric Adams. Listen to the people in Chicago. Listen to Denver. Listen to the people in Boston. Listen to the people in Maine. Don't listen to me. Don't believe a word I've said. I'm begging you. This is your country. This has nothing to do with politics. Let me apologize for being so animated today as well. It's just that I'm just panicked for the young people here. We will not be here in 10 years, guys. You don't understand. Where we are letting this country slip through our fingers like sand. And we're watching an administration facilitate it. Joe Biden, I'm asking you a question, sir. Who is supposed to benefit from 10 million people illegally entering this country and our taxpayers supporting them? Who is supposed to benefit when you pour hundreds of billions of dollars, which is the direction we're going, into the Ukraine? How do we benefit? It's not a cornerstone to our country. It's a cornerstone to Europe. Why are we disproportionately supporting this? I'm not saying abandon Ukraine. I'm saying get this in proportion here, folks. And by the way, don't listen to me. Go talk to the people in the cities. You know what it is? People just don't know what to do about this today. The horse is out of the stall, they feel, and they're going about their business. We're on YouTube, guys. I hope you guys plug into what we're saying here. We're not trying to tell you who to vote. I want you to figure it out yourself. I wouldn't insult your intelligence by leading you around by the nose. I'm just giving you information. I want you to challenge us. I'd like you to communicate with us if you think we're wrong. I want to create a forum, especially for our young people, where I can go in and start to apologize for destroying your future. My generation has their fingerprints all over it. I've said this before. These kids have come into this world in the past couple of decades, and we have destroyed the credibility of every institution they need to believe in as a foundation. Tom and I speak about this. I don't know where the hell this all goes. Let me just go back to Hunter Biden for a second. Hunter, the tax thing, look, I'm not going to get involved with you. Even the gun thing. This disposal of the firearm within a school, you know what? I can talk to you back and forth. What you did with this little girl defines who you are as a man. And I hate to say this to you, you are a scumbag. Period. If you'd like to talk to me in person, I make myself available. You can bring your whole Secret Service detail so you won't get your ass kicked. I wouldn't kick it anyway. It's not who I am. In any event, Tom, we're going to wrap the show for today. There's so much to talk about in this country. And the interesting thing is, no matter what topic we talk about, we haven't even talked about the rampant crime in your cities. I just want to brush up against this, that I listened to someone say, we're blaming Walgreens for leaving because Walgreens won't stay around in cities like San Francisco and continue to be fleeced. We have no laws in this country, guys. We are becoming a lawless society. Look at the incident with your New York City police. That's just one. We had them in the Bronx a couple of years ago pouring water over a uniformed New York City police officer. And I will tell you, if you did that during my generation, you would have visited the hospital. I know that statement offends a whole lot of you that don't understand how base this world really is. Stop lying to us about how valuable human life is, because we slaughter our kids like we brush our teeth. Just look at what we've done in Vietnam in particular, and Afghanistan and Iraq. Sell it to somebody else. I can problem solve for you. I hate to say this to you. I didn't want to go down this road today because it's a very dangerous road. In yesteryear, we wanted to rule the streets with and ruled is what it is, with respect. We wanted the people to know they could come to us, that we respected them and they respected us. There was an element that doesn't understand that only fear and violence regulate them. That's what you just witnessed. If you did that in my generation, we would have hunted these children down, period. And then use your imagination as to what would take place next. Now, the cops were afraid to look at you wrong. In the city of New York, Tom, I don't know if you're aware of this, every encounter you have with the public, you must now do a complete write-up and document it. You know what the solution to that is, ladies and gentlemen? Cops ain't coming near you. You don't get it. All these big mouths talking about defunding the police, who, by the way, are hiring people like me and Tom to protect them, Cori Bush, okay? Have it to the point where you don't have to worry about allocating funds for hiring. Nobody wants to come on this job. They are leaving the city of New York in record numbers. You better hang on to your hats, folks. And New York is just one city. This is coming to neighborhoods near you, especially in your major cities where we've abandoned the rule of law. Tom, before I forget, I want to talk to you about Illinois, because this guy Pritzker, a few months ago, he passed a cashless bail, which is the same thing we did in New York, which means we lock you up for sex offenses, robberies, serious assaults, theft, and we just redundantly release you. But I think there's more going on now, Tom. Am I correct?
Yeah, if you're halfway intelligent, you're supposed to learn from your own mistakes or mistakes other people make. And that's the advantage of education. You're taught, don't do this because that was tried here and failed, or that was tried somewhere else and failed. And you're right. The governor of Illinois has gone along with the stupid policies that New York has put into effect that are failing so badly. And now they've added a new one there. They've proposed legislation in Illinois to prevent the police from making a traffic stop on a car that has no license plates or has false information on the registration on the license plate. Now, that's what they haven't passed it yet, but that's proposed and they're going to pass that. So when a police officer sees a car going down the street with improper, illegal, expired, whatever registration or no registration at all, they're not allowed to pull it over anymore. Now, the ridiculous thing about that is that was the traffic stop made in Oklahoma of McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber. And that's how that case was solved, because he took the plates off, the plates didn't match, and a very diligent police officer said something's wrong here. McVeigh wasn't black. This wasn't a racist stop and driving while black, as Obama used to say, or any of that kind of stuff. This is a violation that's pretty serious. The police officer starts talking to McVeigh on the street with this, and he realizes something's not right, takes McVeigh into custody, and they take the car into custody. Then later, and that officer didn't realize that the bombing had happened just not a short distance away, a couple hundred miles away in Oklahoma City. So now they've got McVeigh in custody. One thing leads to another, and that bombing of the Oklahoma City Murrah building was solved because the police officer stopped a car that had improper registration displayed. So this is not, a tool of repression on the part of the police. It's just one more thing. Why would somebody be driving down the street? And if the answers given by McVeigh had put the suspicions aside, the officer would have probably said, okay, get that taken care of as soon as possible. But in the interview of McVeigh on the street, that officer realized something more is wrong here. And they took him into custody and then got the information about that car was tied to the bombing in Oklahoma City.
And you know what, Thomas, all ties to? The safety of the public as a whole. Guys, like I've said before, if you think only the Republicans will be affected by these Democrat policies, you're wrong. The Democrat people will be too. When are you guys going to come in from the rain and get the cuckoo back in the clock? These are not policies that are good for you. I just said to Tom, I mentioned to him, in New York City, if the police have an encounter with the public, they have to do a big write-up. The solution to that is don't go near the public. They don't want a car stop anymore. You guys
That's
don't
not a brand
understand
new concept. Lou, back in the 1970s, when I was a patrol officer, uniformed street cop, 73 to 79 when I joined the Bureau. But at that time, there was a strong anti-law enforcement sentiment in the United States. When we made a traffic stop, we could count on being insulted by the person we were stopping. We could count on the lack of respect. We could count on the people that might spit on you or call you bad names or whatever. That was rampant in the 1970s. That died down. Country became a little more conservative later, especially during the Reagan years. But at that time, we had the requirement to fill out, they were called FI cards, field interrogation or field interview. And you were supposed to take the name and the address, whatever it was, and most importantly, sex and race of the individual you encountered. Now, you have street cops that are in bad neighborhoods that would be almost impossible to encounter a white person or an Asian person. they're more than likely going to encounter Black or Hispanic individuals. And so now then those stats are used in many cases by the Department of Justice to show, see, that police officer is racist, that department is racist, they're always stopping Blacks. They're always encountering Blacks on the street. Well, depending on the neighborhood, that may be all you're going to encounter. So that's why now you have this revised edition of that policy from all those 50 years ago, bring it back, and then they can use that to beat cops over the head with they're racist because look at all the Blacks that they've got. So you're right. How many police officers are not going to even write this down or make the encounter or whatever? More and more, anytime a police officer encounters somebody and it becomes a negative encounter, it's the officer's fault. The officer's in trouble. The officer might get disciplined. That's where the difficulty comes now. So this is just one more deterrent to police officers being diligent.
You know, Tom, and let you and I be truthful, right? We need police reform. We need better candidate selection, clearly better compensation if you want to attract a better candidate. You can't train a cop enough. You just can't do it. You know, you could train them 7 days a week, 365 days. There are so many variables in this job. Part of the fun of this job is creativity. I want to mention something else to the public about policing that they've taken away. It's called discretionary policing. Truth be told, you ready? Tell her of the truth. And I'm not speaking for other cops. There were kids I caught with cases of beer, called their mommy and daddy, didn't lock them up, didn't issue summonses. I gave the parents an opportunity to modify that behavior. A kid got caught with a doobie with me. Call up the parents. Give the parents a shot before you start flushing the kid's life down the toilet because he had a joint back in the 70s, which was really serious, I might know. Now you can smoke in public in most goddamn states in this country. It's shameful. We gave you something else to have as a crutch instead of teaching you to stand on your own 2 feet and believe in yourself. We got you believing in other things. Don't get me going off on a tangent. Discretionary policing's gone. You know, I didn't ticket every single person I stopped. In fact, I had a tendency not to ticket people because of the following. I couldn't ticket cops, clergy, nurses, lawyers, family members of police. They ticket people like my father, who was a steam fitter and a welder, happened to have a son. He'd get a pass if he was smart enough to tell him my son was a cop. So I was pretty easygoing about it. You could use your discretion. Let them catch you doing that today, Tom, and we have an internal investigation. Let me tell you what goes on in the city of New York, ladies and gentlemen, for openers. You lose a traffic court case in court. There's an internal investigation that takes place to determine, was something going on? Did you know him? Did you do him a favor? Look, we had a little shenanigan we used to pull. It's over, so I'm going to tell you what it is. If I stop Tom's brother-in-law or friend of Tom's, he'd pick up the phone and say, Lou, listen, you wrote my friend or whatever. You don't show up in court, it was thrown out. Today, you don't show up in court, you get fined, and there's an internal investigation. By the way, the people that are investigating us are the ones that taught us that. That's the cutie pie part of this whole thing. But it's wrong, period. End of discussion. I got the memo. But now, if a cop writes a summons, and believe this or not, if you do not properly fill out that summons form, it can be thrown out of court. There's an internal investigation. They're dedicating resources and assets, I hope I said that right, resources and assets, so the police can go out and determine was something done less than above board. Guys, we got bigger problems. You guys don't understand. We're at a crisis. We're at a crossroad. We need leadership. I'm not telling you it's Donald
Lou,
Trump.
if I could make a comment about the
Absolutely.
marijuana issue. Back in the day, when we made a traffic stop and the driver rolls the window down and a cloud of marijuana smoke comes out of there and everything, all of the hue and cry to legalize marijuana was already going on in the 70s. Now, one of the differences was the kind of marijuana that was being smoked. The active ingredient that made you high was called tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. And the percentage of THC in marijuana being sold on the streets at that time was minimal, 5% maybe. Now, the THC content of the legalized marijuana being sold in the shops is 10 or 15 times as powerful. And now police officers, psychologists, emergency room officials are saying that regular smokers or imbibers of marijuana are getting this increased THC content, and it's causing psychological problems in the people that are taking that kind of content now. So marijuana is not the mild, oh, it's just like having a beer, and oh, it's not that dangerous, and it should be legalized, and it's no big deal. The marijuana that's coming now out of our shops, especially where it is legal, is causing severe psychological damage to some people. And nobody wants to talk about that.
Let me piggyback that also, so you guys really understand what's going on in your country. Okay, marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance with the federal government. It's a federal crime. The states have thumbed their nose to the federal government, at times saying, "Don't send your federal officers here. We're going to lock them up." They've said that on the West Coast, believe it or not. Let me tell you how much your elected officials care about you. Hear what Tom just said about this? I'll tell you something else. I ran around in Studio 54. The cocaine was pure as the driven snow. I didn't participate. It wasn't my deal. I never smoked anything, ironically. I never drank coffee, believe it or not. But the bottom line is this. Everything is so laced that it's dangerous to a point of death. But here's the deal with Mary J. Wana, that your elected officials are bailing out their states' economies, knowing what Tom has just spoken to, guys. I don't know what to say to you. They know how dangerous this controlled substance is, but they let you consume it because it strengthens the economy of a state. I don't know what else to tell you today, guys. There's problems in paradise here. These are fixable problems. Tom and I can talk you through them. We're not looking to be elected. I'll be honest with you. I'd like to ride off into the sunset. I don't have that prerogative because I have skin in the game. And I love young people. It's about them having the good fortune, the prerogative that I've had. Guys, you hear me speak and Tom speak. Tom is very heavily traveled. You just have to listen to him. I've traveled this country up and down, left and right. I've traveled a good part of this world. Unlike a lot of Americans, I don't take it for granted and I don't squander time. I say something else to you. You want to hear a man speak about this country who loves it? Tune into Governor Schwarzenegger, who came from Austria, who realizes what this country's really about. It's a shame he can't run for president because I tell you something, I've had the pleasure of working for this guy since he's out of office. Recently was with him last week, to be honest with you. Everybody loves this guy because there's a sensibility and a centrist thinking process that goes to everybody. He is just not agenda driven by politics. He wants what's best for this country because this man benefited from it. I didn't need the governor to teach me not to take the country for granted. I hope that people, when they listen to him, understand his journey. He's got I think it's Netflix special on his life. And, you know, he's involved in a lot of these, quite a character. He's incredibly smart. He's deceptively smart, very simplistic in his thinking. He doesn't get convoluted. He just sees things as they are, much the same way Tom and I do. It just is what it is, guys. We have to wrap today. You know, unfortunately, Tom and I could keep talking about topic after topic after topic. You know, we didn't even talk about artificial intelligence, guys, because you better hang on to your hats. This is something else that we're going to monetize, and we're going to put this society at grave risk. Next time we meet, we're going to talk about something that just came out through Elon Musk about planting chips, guys, and artificial intelligence in general, the replication of voice and image. This is incredibly dangerous. The dummies here that think they're going to make money on this are going to destroy not this country, we're going to destroy the world. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. Please communicate with us through operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. Tom, I thank you as always for your wisdom and your insight and your historical lessons. I do, guys, want to come back at some point in the not too distant future. I want to bring Chris Stryker back in to get into this border issue. And I want to talk to Tom again about the significance of this Kennedy assassination, the little nuances he keeps alluding to, and what it translated to historically going forward. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you so much.